You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Adler and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 413. What are we calling this? Jedi Hunters, the Inquisitors. It's a show that's been long in the works. Actually, it hasn't been long in the works. It was not too long to put the work in. It's just been long in the release. How about that? A number of things have trumped this show, and we just felt like, well, we're getting pretty close to Kenobi. That's the whole point of the show, to kind of talk and revisit the Inquisitors, give you guys some more information, background information, refresh your memories, if you will. And Kenobi's not out, so we made it, and we're excited. This should be a lot of fun to really just kind of sit down and talk about them. And speaking of a lot of fun, I have somebody with us tonight. His name's Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me tonight.
I think I have you every night. If this is not every night, but every show night.
This got real personal.
Oh well. Whoa. Hello.
Whoa. Hello. PG.
Thank
Man,
you,
how's your day going? Crazy?
Yeah, it's been
as usual.
A little nuts as usual. There's it's been mostly like personal stuff. I haven't looked much at the news, so I'm looking at the notes here that you threw in here. I'm like, oh, really? That's interesting. Let's talk about that.
That's why we have the news.
So yeah, it's just been a crazy day. So and then plus we're on the cusp of Star Wars Celebration here.
We are a week. We are exactly at a week.
Yes.
We will be coming off of that first day high, enjoying meeting up with listeners and podcasters this time next week.
That's right. This is 1 week exactly at this time. We'll be out there with the podcasters, the fellow podcasters, and supporters from different shows. So more on that in a second. Let's why don't we get into we'll segue into the news.
Yeah, why don't we talk about exciting news that we announced yesterday?
So this has been in the works for some time. Like it's nothing that just surprise. We've been trying to work at this, and credit to Becca, who's really been putting a lot of the effort into it through her contacts. And we had always envisioned that this show, the podcast show that we were going to do at Celebration this year, would have somebody there as with us as a guest panelist, right? And we kind of wrote the show in such that if we couldn't, then that's fine. We would still do the show as it were. But, we were kind of hoping that we could get someone else in there to kind of just change the dynamic of the show. And lo and behold, we got really amazing news yesterday. Claudia Gray, best-selling author Claudia Gray, will be joining us on the stage for that show live. So I think right now, for me, the biggest challenge is who's going to sit next to who. So I told Becca that she gets first props in terms of where Claudia sits. So I have a feeling we'll sit the ladies next to each other, and then the three of us can just fight it out about who sits where at that point. So, but
right.
Exciting stuff. I mean, it's a truly a blessing to have her there, and the fact that she is this supportive for this show and the topic that we're going to talk about. It's opening day and all that, and her just giving us that time is just invaluable. So I can't say thank you enough to her.
Yeah, it's super exciting. And we almost had one of her counterparts as well, but schedule didn't work out. But ooh, man, having her there and be able to get her perspective and for her to judge us harshly about how wrong we are with all of our
right.
opinions will be fantastic. But no, it's a huge thanks over to Becca to making this happen and being very persistent with following up and making sure that this opportunity came to light. So this is really, really exciting. This is a pretty big deal. It helps us give us, what it does really, let's just be honest, Albert. It gives us a little something to entice people to not go to the Lucasfilm showcase on Thursday morning.
Yeah. I mean, we're up
against a behemoth. I mean, we're up against, this would be like going up against Rise of Skywalker trailer is effectively what we're going up against. Yeah.
Yeah. To compare it to 2019.
Right. Yeah. We had the chance to move things around, but schedule just wasn't behaving and cooperating. So we stuck where we're at, but this is really cool. This blows me away. This is pretty neat.
Yep. So we've got that going for us. So again, as a reminder, that'll be Thursday, the 26th at 11 a.m. And that's
Pacific
all local time.
Yep.
Yep, local time. We'll be on stage for about 45 minutes all in, and there's some setup time in there at the very end of it. But usually, and I can't promise anything, and we don't know what her schedule is going to be like, but I know for a fact, in at least in 2019, when some of these folks are coming off, there's we're in that 15 minutes of dead time. There's people coming up to the stage, and we're saying hi and shaking hands, taking pictures, and Claudia's going to be there. So unless she's got to scoot off to something immediately.
Yeah, hopefully she'll stick around for a few minutes there.
She may be around and she does autographs.
Well, we don't. Yeah, I don't want to promise any of that stuff.
I'm not promising anything. As I was very clear, can't promise anything. Right. But I've seen what she was doing in 2019, and some of the other authors as well. After the Del Rey publishing one, they all stuck around and they signed everything for as long as they could before they had to rush off. So
yeah, I just don't know if they were doing any actual signings this time around. What's really cool though is that there is nothing after us for hours.
Yeah.
For the podcast stage. So the opportunity is there if her schedule permits, which is pretty neat. So that is kind of a nice consolation with the scheduling. So that's kind of cool. But speaking of more celebration news, we want to make sure that people sign up for our meetup on Friday night at 7:00 over at Unsung Brewing on the 27th. So a week from tomorrow, as we're recording this. And again, you can go find that over at cantinacast.com/events. And actually, that's where you can find the information about Claudia Gray as well. cantinacast.com/news. I posted an article over there that'll help kind of funnel people any kind of updates we get to of any of this stuff. So, and I even got it tied to all the social media finally. So
awesome.
We're almost like a real show again.
Well, it only took 11 years, but we got
it. Hey, better late than never. We're going to close this thing up in about a month. So we'll just now that we've made all this progress.
Right.
But yeah, so everything, cantinacast.com, you're going to find everything you need to know about what's going on at Celebration, where we'll be, what Albert looks like, which MeUndies he's purchased for the week. No, you won't know that part. But.
Yeah. We should do that. What is Albert wearing today? We'll do that little segment there.
Yeah, right.
And then, so as part of that event, there's the meetup itself, right? That is, what's a different link? That's the RSVP?
Oh yeah. So if you're gonna be able to attend, which we've got a handful of folks who are going to meet us over there, cantinacast.com/RSVP. Let us know you're coming. Again, that's really to help us make sure we've got an accurate count. And actually, we probably need to call them and make sure that we're all good to go there since we're about a week out.
Yep.
So yeah, please do that as soon as you can. If you are going to be able to attend, even if you think you might be able to attend, go ahead and just let us know. There is an option for, hey, I'd love to do it, but I'm still getting things worked out. So,
yeah. And the first drink is on me.
Oh wow, this is amazing.
Yeah,
everybody's going to show up then.
Right, here come the signups.
Right, cool. All right, well, how about we get into some actual Star Wars related news of things going on, but it's still celebration oriented. How about that?
All right,
we got a theme. Okay, we have to take a minute to gawk at some of the exclusives that were announced today. If it wasn't breaking your bank to get to Celebration, they're going to finish you off when you're there.
In style.
Yeah, they are going to, they are. Yeah. So I had to just pull up the website because this is just too cool to not talk about. And we're going to, this came out on the This Week in Star Wars show. And there's a couple in here that I'm going to do. I mean, if you're an old school guy like Albert or Gal, R2-D2 Tamagotchi. Yeah, Tamagotchi. I know Dragon of the Abyss is probably looking at this like, oh my gosh, yes. They got a really super fancy watch, but this is what all of the hullaboo is going to be about. And I posted this on social media today too. So Del Rey is releasing an exclusive limited edition High Republic signed box set of Light of the Jedi, Rising Storm, Fallen Star, and they've got these exclusive hardbound covers. They've got Aurebesh along the spine for the titles of the books. You got the Nihil logo on one, the Republic and the Jedi. It is just astounding, the beauty of these books. Now, what's less astounding is the $250 price tag, but don't worry, Albert, it's a collector's item instantly.
Well,
and they even come with like a little box you can keep them in too, so they can stay together. Yeah, so there are some other. Yeah, there's some other. Sorry, there are a few other pictures out there online you can get, but pretty cool. Pretty cool. Only available at the official Celebration store in person. This will not be sold online, and that's kind of a theme for all this stuff. So they've also got an exclusive cover for Stories of Jedi and Sith.
Oh, interesting. It's
Yeah.
Kenobi rather than Vader.
Right. Yep. We've got some more shirts here, some whatever that
What
is.
is that? Notepad? Station?
Yeah, a Grogu notepad, kind of cool. A collectible Grand Inquisitor rank pen, $60. That's not too bad. All sorts of pop stuff, man. But you got to go. The Funko booth, I believe, is one of these things you got to go and sign up for to get into to do all that. But there's all sorts of Funko, and then Gentle Giant had
that's awesome looking.
some stuff out there too. This though,
Oh wow,
Kotobukiya, white Boba Fett, $100 for artifacts. Pretty awesome, yeah.
I like that
A
lot.
$2,500 Darth Vader porcelain figure.
Oh, and he's all in patent leather. Wow.
Yeah, that's top of everyone's list. Some pop vinyl pins of R2s or
All
R2
right.
units.
Yeah.
And then Loungefly with, of course, some all sorts of gear. I think,
cute backpacks.
yeah, Loungefly is another one of those. I think you have to have a reservation to get into. So you have to do that on the app, which is available now. The app is
my
available.
Goodness.
Oh, and then here's right up your alley, the Apple Watch bands
yeah.
by Moby Fox. And they're going to have multiple covers. We're seeing the Vader one here, which has flames and everything. It's really super cool. But they're also going to have other ones there. These are about $40 each. Yeah. And so we got some good old socks here from our old buddy Max Rebo. That's right. And then check these out.
Ooh.
Rock Love. Now, you say that. Don't get too excited.
Well,
But yeah, so these
real?
are Kyber crystal necklaces. $150 each. But they're going to have one for Kenobi, one for Mace Windu, one for Anakin, and one for Yoda. But they are really cool. So think about the the Kyber crystal that's hanging around a chain or around looks like a leather.
It's similar
leather band.
it's similar to the one that Luke was wearing in The Last Jedi.
It is.
Which I don't want to spoil anything. May be coming back to a story near you very soon.
Right. It's probably just lingering in the shadow, I would assume. Huh?
Oh, it could be. I don't know what it would be, but yeah, maybe there's something there.
And then, of course, we got exclusive celebration pin, which I showed the one I had from the last week. So that's cool. It's got Cad Bane from the Mandalorian series, Cad Bane. And then some other jewelry.
Keeps going on and on.
Dude, this is a long list. I mean, this is just today's Thomas Kincaid, art collection, $830 and up. I mean, Thomas Kincaid's a legend, of course. Regal Robot's got all sorts of stuff they're doing, including an actual realistic I don't know, what would you call this for I almost said Droopy McCool, for Max Rebo. Like
Cool.
his legs, instead of making it look like arms, they're actually legs. So it's more anatomically correct in some kind of way, I guess.
I think this was the concept art, wasn't it, originally?
This is the concept maquette, yeah. But yeah, this is the original Max Rebo.
He's gross. He just plays on his butthole the whole time. Sorry, I had to say that.
That's the list, man. It is long. It is a lot. They are a lot in the dollar department too. But man, it is something.
All right. So what on this list has your eye that you're like, I have to have it? Price is not enough. Is not even a.
Oh, the books. I mean, the books I think are a slam dunk. Here, I'll scroll back up. Sorry if this is giving people motion sickness like it is me. I think for anybody who has an Apple Watch, I think these are probably only for Apple Watch. I don't think if you have another smartwatch, these might work. But yeah, I think the smartwatch is going to be something people are going to be all over. You and I did the phone cases when we were there last time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I've still got mine actually right here.
Yeah, it's held up. I don't have mine anymore. I took it off because I switched phones, but not a bad deal.
Well, I did, and I kept it. I had to keep that phone just so I could keep the case, even though I changed phones. Yeah, I think if you're a Funko collector, gosh, you're going to be all over this. But man, I think these books, for me, is really where it's at. Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Yeah. I mean, the books this is the Mrs. Master and Apprentice special edition cover all over again, man. That left a bad taste in my mouth. So I'm wondering how they're going to do that.
Right. And again, this is not at the Del Rey booth. This is in the Celebration store. So a little bit different than how they did Master, because there were people who actually commented about that specifically.
Yeah.
Because Del Rey was the first one to kind of push this out there, and then it ended up on the Star Wars website.
All right. Yeah. Well, I'm going to, and we're going to be there like 11 a.m., day one, we go on stage. So there goes any chances of us trying to get in there early. Unless, what is the store? Doesn't it open like an hour early or something? But I think it's only to VIP.
Yeah, but I would hope that they would limit. I hope they print a bunch, but then I hope they don't just do it all right at one time, right at the start, and then they sell out and you're done.
Yeah, they did like not rationalize, but they essentially what they did is over the time. So
They rationed it a bit.
yeah, they rationed it is what I was thinking. They like the Darth Maul jackets. You remember those from 2019? They were like
Yeah.
a varsity jacket or whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Those were they only sold so many like per hour. And then they had like there was I don't want to get into all that, but yeah, I hope they do something like that. I just don't. This is the one thing that I probably definitely want now. And maybe I'll pay somebody to go stand in line for me. That
You can get on your app and do it, man.
yeah,
It's easy.
all right. I can't wait. I mean, this is some and yeah, the Moby face watches is another thing that I'm probably gonna have to pick up, especially if they're exclusive or even if they're just out there before anywhere else. I like the way that Darth Vader one looks. I've got a cool. I'm not wearing the band right now, but I've got several Moby face watches or bands from them, which are awesome. I really highly recommend them. But the one I normally wear is this one. It's I'll put it in the camera.
Yeah, the X-Wing one, right?
Yeah, the X-Wing. It's not. Why is it not focusing? Okay. Oh, there it goes. I was too close. Yeah, you can see it there. But that's the X-Wing one. It's got some really great attention to detail on this stuff. So. Oh man, that's a lot of money.
Oh, yeah, it's rich. And they've got I think I sent you a message the other day. I was like, just Celebration's going to take every bit of money I have because the T-shirts this year are awesome too. They got an Afra shirt that I want. They've got an Ahsoka shirt. They've got a couple of different Ahsoka shirts. One exclusively for kind of the female fit, but another one that's just really cool. It's kind of a unisex one. And so, but man, all of the shirts this year are pretty awesome, including some throwback, type of ones like a Max Rebo and then a WrestleMania. Yeah. So
That's the one I want.
Yep. I know you're all over that one.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're a little long on news here. There are a couple other things though. You can hear my clicks. I apologize about that. But again, Dark Horse is coming back and we've got their first look at what some of the Dark Horse comics are going to look like, including Hyperspace Stories here, which has Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Padme and a scary looking young Wookiee there at the bottom. And so that'll start coming out in August, and then super exciting, as well as some variant covers here.
Of course.
And these are all ages books, or that one is at least. And then Cavan Scott returns. For those that were familiar with Cavan Scott when they were with IDW, would do Tales from Vader's Castle, Ghosts of Vader's Castle. So starting a new one this year after 3 years of doing the kind of the Vader type of series, and this one's called Tales from the Rancor Pit. And look at this art. Now, this is promotional, so it might not be final, but still, I'm digging it so far.
Yep. You see Jabba in the background. So this is going to be like a Tales of the
Yeah, it's for Halloween.
Bounty
So
Hunters kind of thing? Oh, okay.
Well, it's going to be like Halloween stuff. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that's what the Vader's stuff was before.
Yeah.
And so this will start coming out in September and October, and pretty excited about that as well. And then finally... Of course,
I've seen some of these, and I need to get all of these variants now.
And the good news is all of these are really easy to obtain. So, of course, June starts Pride Month, right? And Marvel always does a Pride variant across all of their series and most of these are just absolutely beautiful.
They're awesome.
And so they've got one for Bounty Hunters here. There's a few. I say there's a few. It's like all of them I want.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like my pride and joy right here. The Obi-Wan issue number 2 Pride variant is with Kofan Ferris, and she is just wicked. I mean, she is just wicked. Such a cool character. She's in the Afra series. That's why people may not recognize her, but she's in the Afra series. She is wickedly cool. The Vader one has Sabe, Sashay, and Yane for the Handmaidens, so that's kind of cool. And then for you Vi Marathi fans,
oh, that's awesome.
She's going to be on the Mandalorian cover for issue 1.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and again, there's not always a rhyme or reason to why they pick a character for these, which is a little bit odd. But still, Vi Marathi, I mean, it's just cool. I mean, we don't get a lot of her. Of course, the Star Wars flagship.
Nope, that's not the one I want, but keep going.
Lara and Roby. And then Han Solo and Chewbacca, yes.
That's the one I want.
Yep, Lula and Zine are on the cover there. And beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful art. Loving this a lot. That's Javier Garron who's doing that one. And of course, Dr. Afra has she's just kind of front and center on it. Looking amazing as always. So
yeah, I like that one too. The last two are my favorite, but
Yeah, but I mean, all of them are fantastic. The pride covers are always a lot of fun, and this year will be no different. So, but yeah, I've already got, the cool thing is I've got all these already pre-ordered because they were, these all released in June. So and you can still go get them. Just go get them at your favorite comic shop, either in person, or of course there's a bunch online. If you need a recommendation, visit us over on cantinacast.com/discord. And we have an imprint there, or you can just ping us and we'll be happy to forward you to some of our favorite online comic shops that we do some of this through.
Nice.
And that is the end of it. That's the end of news.
All right.
But wait, there's more. We have a new Patreon member.
We do.
Justin Demetz signed up for our Green Milk special tier. So thank you so much, Justin, for jumping on board and for supporting the show. Hopefully you will enjoy what you have out there and tell your friends. We've just, we just released our, what's it called? Star Wars Cinematic Universe, our first phase, first wave of what we would do there. And that was an exceptional amount of fun. So want to invite people to go out there and check that out. Cantinacast.com/Patreon, Patreon. We'll get you over there. And I'm still working on trying to get a bit of a sampler out there for that too. So hopefully this weekend we'll get that out.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, for doing that. And anybody that signs up, of course, you've got all the content that'll be coming out forward from here on out. But you've got a whole back catalog now of stuff that you can go back and listen to as well.
And if you need a quick link to Mike Rondo reading Chewie and the Pogs, I have it on demand.
Is it really?
Everybody, I have it saved in my favorite.
Oh.
So I can get right to it. Because I don't know if you know this, Albert, but it is a Christmas tradition. A winter holiday season tradition, if you will, that we republish this this critical and landmark piece of just artistry, if you ask me.
Yeah,
Mike reading this. He put sound effects in there. It is actually really, really good. But yeah, it's legendary.
Yeah, that it will someday go into the National Archives of our prestigious United States of America. So
it will. I petition them about every other week, and they're like, "Who are you again?
Wait, what?
What's a rondo?
What's a porg?
What's a pog?
What's a porg?
Pog,
as he would say." Very cool.
All right. Yeah. So that's all the news. And thanks again, Patreon members. Remember, everything you guys donate to us goes right back into the show. And we don't make any money off this. It all goes right back into bringing you guys content every single week.
Excuse me. All right. Well, let's segue into our main show, which is to talk about the Inquisitors. These guys that, let's see, there were some Inquisitors originally in Legends. I don't recall exactly the details, and maybe I should have looked that one up, but I know they were out there in Legends. I don't remember much about them. I don't even know that they were of the same kind. I think they were in the same spirit, but the Inquisitors, as we know them today, obviously came out during Star Wars Rebels. And that was kind of I just want to talk about that, because when they were announced, or when we first saw them, I don't know, it felt like they were controversial. I mean, there were people that were not
absolutely
happy
they were.
That one, suddenly there were all these, red wielding lightsaber people running around that were suddenly force sensitive, and I get it. I mean, it was a little jarring. It was very different, and it certainly didn't align with what we had known coming into, coming off everything that we've gotten from George Lucas. It did feel like this was new. And then, let's just pull the Band-Aid off on the helicopter, lightsabers, and the amount of controversy that spun up. But I think in the end, a lot of people are okay with them. I think they've done a really good job of at least rationalizing why somebody like Palpatine and Vader would put together this program to bring these guys in. The origins are very cool. We'll talk about that here in just a bit. But I think for the most part, and I could be looking at this through rose, colored glasses, but I think a lot of people have come around to them, and we're not seeing a lot of negative feedback outside of some of the cosmetic and visual effects that we're seeing from Kenobi, and the mismatch, or the jarring visuals, if you will, between animated and live television. Beyond that, I don't know that I've heard a lot of negative feedback. So I think they're widely accepted at this point, which is great.
Absolutely, and these are really cool characters. And you're right. There was, they're not any more Jedi. Well, there's not any more Sith. Or, well, are they Sith? And, well, they're not Sith. I mean, but so many questions came out when these were introduced. And unfortunately, you really have to pull information from a variety of sources to really get a good rounded picture of who the Inquisitors are and why they were instrumental to helping pursue. And I think some of it was people were concerned that they were watering down Darth Vader and watering down the Purge and his, his participation in the Purge and personally hunting down, every Jedi and eliminating them, by himself. Right. And I think that was probably the biggest rub for a lot of people was they expected that Vader was the biggest, baddest dude in the galaxy. And he just did it all on his own.
Yeah.
We know that's not reasonable.
Exactly.
But in our headcanon, and I mean, I won't even say it was headcanon. That was pretty much what it was, laid out there as, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. I think the way that they've rationalized is look, it's a big galaxy. He had a lot of other things that he had to do, a lot of other stuff, a lot of other cleanup work, and he couldn't be everywhere at once, right? There was tons of potential leads that were coming up here and there. And so, yeah, it did make sense. Plus, I mean, you think about it, it's another opportunity for somebody like Palpatine to gain control. I don't know, potentially, maybe there's somebody there that he could be eyeballing as a replacement for Vader at some point, right? So it's almost like a talent pool that they were curating. And so all that certainly makes sense these days. And really to kind of get back to their origins, visually, and I want to correct what I said earlier. Visually, the Star Wars Rebel series was the first time we ever saw them.
Right.
The first mention of this program, or what was soon to become the Inquisitors, was first dropped in season 2, episode 3. There's an episode called "Children of the Force," and Palpatine makes a comment in there. I went and watched it, wrote it down, but he says, "Excuse me." He said, "I foresee an army of Force-talented spies in my service, trained in the dark side to peer into every corner of the galaxy afar, and my enemies would be helpless against such vision." And in that episode, that is the episode that kind of starts a lot of this. It starts this whole program or initiative to find and seek out these small children that the Jedi had already identified as being Force sensitive. They were scattered throughout the galaxy. We know now from a couple of different sources, really, but this, in fact, as more recently as Jedi Fallen Order,
right,
that there was this master list of these children, and Palpatine wanted to get his hands on that list. One, for a couple different reasons, and this was all essentially, it was called Project Harvester, is really what this was. But what they were trying to do is go out and find these kids, and then to what end we don't really exactly know. But I know he was out there and interested for trying to stop them from becoming Jedi. Certainly didn't want the Jedi Order to ever take off, right? So having that control was important. But then you think about now, like in the perspective that I have looking at this, like from now that the Rise of Skywalker's out and some of the stuff that we're seeing in The Mandalorian, was he potentially using these kids as like Grogu, right? The child, and extracting midichlorians or whatever it is that they're doing for the purposes of trying to clone a Force sensitive or clone a body of some sort, a host body for his essence. Now after post Return of the Jedi, all of that seems now to make sense. It seems to align and be sort of a part of a larger project that, we may have gotten in bits and pieces, but holistically, I think it certainly fits. But what do you think there on that?
I agree with that one. I think it really does fit that narrative overall of really anything that Palpatine wants to use them for. Mm-hmm. And it was never, well, it was somewhat of an idea. And when we get into the comic books a little bit, we get a little bit more of the backstory there. But, the idea behind it all was to, truly give him people that were easily manipulative and controllable. They weren't the strongest of Force users, but they were very useful. And we've said this, countless times, especially recently when we talk about Palpatine, that he's very good at, accumulating resources and identifying the right kind of resources of what he needs. And that's exactly what the Inquisitorious was all about. And Vader didn't know about it, which is, of course, Vader took this pretty personally. But for Palpatine, he's always got some sort of machination, for lack of a better word, no pun intended, of a plan going on about what he's going to do. And I think it all really does exactly fit that, if he finds one that's pretty good, potential new protege, okay, that works out okay.
Yeah.
But then also, if not, or if else, later on as we get into the sequel trilogy, then all of a sudden now we've got another, we've got a backup plan, right? The contingency starts to take on a new flavor of what what needs to be done and who is available to him in order to, at the very least, stem, the losing of his essence and of his spirit, but at the same time can also potentially solve at least one of the mysteries, or going to continue to buy more time for what does immortality actually look like for Sheev Palpatine.
Mm-hmm. There's also, if you're interested, excuse me, as some of you know, I've mentioned Dark Legends. It's by George Martin, who's going to be one of the writers going into phase 2 of the
George Mann, right?
Or George Mann, sorry, not George Martin. George Martin's somebody completely different, of course. No, George Mann, who is going to be one of the writers here going into phase 2 of the High Republic. But and he's done some other work. But this is the collection of Dark Side stories that they released a few years back. But and now, again, not to spoil anything, but there's something interesting from that book that will appear very shortly. So I'll tease that out. So it's cool that they pulled it from they're pulling from it. But this had the story in there of the orphanage, which was, excuse me, it was just from the perspective of kids, right? It was one of these stories that kind of keeps you up at night. It's similar to the what was the Shri Karakara story from the High Republic, but it was stories that were told to kids and about these ghosts or demons that would come in the middle of night and snatch kids out of orphanages or out of their homes. And it's a really cool story. There's nothing really significant about it other than it just reinforces what they were doing. And they were literally sending out these inquisitors like that, going into orphanages, going into homes, stealing children right out from their beds, literally at night. And, parents were never seeing them again. So there is a cool story in there too, if you want to get into that a little bit more. And it does focus around, it was called the Phantom is what they were, the story's called The Orphanage, but they were calling them Phantoms. But it does focus on one particular small child in there as well. So I won't ruin any of that, but let's go back. I want to touch on what you'd said earlier too about this was a surprise to Vader. Palpatine is notoriously known for making plans, keeping people in the dark on purpose, right? That ever constantly controlling information whenever he could and using it to his advantage. And this was just another example of that. So much that then he ended up putting them in charge of training them, right? Bringing them up to speed and training them. And I've seen a lot of debate about why is it that, they were never trained up to the level of somebody like Vader. I think they're pretty well trained. I think that's been explored more than maybe initially. I mean, when Rebels came out, they definitely could hold their own. I don't know that anybody would watch that season or those 2 seasons that they were in and think that they were as adept as somebody like Darth Vader. But, I mean, they did take on Kanan. They did take on Ahsoka. They lost, of course. I mean, they're probably outmatched with Ahsoka. Kanan was probably an even match battle. I think he went pretty toe-to-toe with them for a while there.
Yeah, he did.
And then Darth Maul too. Like Maul, we'll get to him in a little bit, but Darth Maul was fighting them at one point too. So they were certainly trained well enough to hold their own with some of the more powerful, protagonists out there in Star Wars. But that question about whether or not he trained them to their fullest potential, I don't think he did. Like I don't know why he would either. I don't see that. It's never really been. It's not the rule of 2. These guys aren't Sith. They're just lackeys, in my opinion. They saw them as assassins. They saw them as,
It's very much like a kind of like a Asajj Ventress, for Dooku, almost like a pet of sorts, right?
Right. To do their dirty work, the work that nobody wanted to do, travel around the galaxy, looking for folks, chasing leads, chasing ghosts. But what do you think? I mean, do you have any issues with, I guess, the powers that they were able to wield? Because we never see them use like force lightning. They couldn't do any force choking. It does feel like for the most part, their powers were really limited to just using lightsabers. And, they could slow their fall. They can do some of the more physical things, but it was all very inner self, right? Never really external use of the
Exactly.
force.
And for those that don't know, they are all former Jedi. At least the ones that the Inquisitors that we see, that we know of, at the very least, are all former Jedi. And again, they weren't always the strongest either. And I think in the Vader comic, we spend a lot more time with the Grand Inquisitor. and we understand a little bit more of that backstory. And I think that's where you see. But as far as training goes, because that story is more immediately following Order 66, basically in the year following Order 66, and you start to see that they're basically training with one another. They're training with remotes, and they got a lot of arrogance between them. There's a lot of infighting. It's kind of your typical Sith, thing of who's the favorite or who's the best at this or that, and
who's got the longest lightsaber.
Yeah, exactly. And so you get that environment, and then you start to see that they're not what they crack up, because then Palpatine, makes an introduction of sorts for Vader and the Grand Inquisitor. And then it's and the Grand Inquisitor starts to really taunt Vader, thinking he's got him. And Vader's like, no, I'm just testing to see what you can do. And then he just throttles him.
Yeah. And
Palpatine actually stops Vader from killing the Grand Inquisitor pretty handily.
Mm-hmm.
But it pisses Vader off, right? He's like, you already replacing me? And that doubt, that Anakin never really had to deal with Palpatine back when he was a Jedi, constantly dealing with doubt and disappointment in that with Palpatine. And Palpatine just kind of, no one's as good as you, of course. Was it ever a question? And Vader's like, no. This was never in doubt. But that's where it's important, though, where Vader has to take over that training. And I think that's where we see them in Rebels, to get to your point.
Yeah.
Is that Vader is personally responsible for bringing the Inquisitors up to speed. And if he kills them, he kills them. They're too weak. They're not strong enough to do it.
Not worthy.
Right. Yeah. Not really worthy. I mean, Vader looks down on them, pretty much start to finish, and never develops any kind of relationship with any of them, or a trust or anything like that. So there's no love lost at all. The Inquisitors don't necessarily like Vader a whole lot. They think that they could probably supplant him, and they want to achieve that right-hand man or right-hand person to the Emperor, and be in his favor, of course. The Grand Inquisitor is not the end-all be-all. He's just kind of he's just the ringleader of sorts, and they do seem to listen to him reasonably well. But it's all Vader. It's all Vader that we see in Rebels. That's the only reason why they're competent against even Kanan. And we know Kanan left when Kanan Order 66, he was a bit young still, but he was still fairly well trained, but no match for Ahsoka or for a Vader or really anyone like that. And actually, we see that even after the events of Order 66, they're really not when you think about who was left after Order 66, Jedi-wise, you're talking about more the cream of the crop, and trying to find them and actually do them. Palpatine has a pretty limited resource there, but it's a good opportunity for him to test to see who's actually going to make a difference against some of the better Jedi in the galaxy, knowing that the chances of success are pretty low, but then he can send the Enforcer in and finish off the job.
Yeah, they and yeah, that's a good point, because they wouldn't go. I mean, they weren't going out and doing these solo kind of missions. I mean, they were traveling in packs of 2, 3, sometimes even more on these missions, because knowing they were going to be going up against potentially the best of the best, the smartest, the more witty Jedi, they were able to get out, stay hidden, stay secret. On top of that, going in and infiltrating small villages, planets, whatever, in search of these children. People weren't just willingly giving up their kids, right? And so they were going to meet some resistance of some sort. So, they definitely were not a one-man army. They had to travel kind of in packs, and that kind of maybe spoke to some of the limitations that they had around their training. Specifically, or I thought was another interesting aspect about them was Vader's training in itself. Prior to him coming in, because they were all of the Jedi mind, if you will, right? They were all former Jedi at some point. And they probably, we can maybe get into if we want to, they had varying degrees of like what they did. Some were Jedi, well, I don't know that. Yeah, one was like a guardian, right? That's the Inquisitors. Others were like Padawans. Some may have been knights at some point. I don't think we've had an example of a master who became an Inquisitor.
Yeah, I don't believe
we'll get into how they went about recruiting these folks as well, because that's probably another layer to pull back. But to go back to what I was saying is, because they were coming from Jedi backgrounds, their initial fighting styles were very defensive, right? They were all about, to some extent, it's an extension of, ask questions first before you shoot. And so when Vader came in and saw that, it's one of the first things he cleaned up. Is like, no, you guys have to be way more offensive about the way you attack. This is more of the dark side. Tap into the dark side. Tap into that aggression, feeding off of that. And so he immediately changed their style. But going back to what you said too, and I found this like fascinating as well as disturbing. There was a one of his training techniques was for him to cut off like arms and limbs.
Yeah, it was almost torture, right?
Yeah, without them even really know it. I mean, this is just part of the training. Sometimes it came when maybe they mouthed off, or during the training routines that were very difficult, or maybe just out of pure rage and frustration for him. But he called these the lessons of loss, and it was almost like he was almost taking his own personal kind of feelings, emotions about what he's been through, right? More machine than man, and all of that pain, and subjecting these people to it as well. I mean, he was transforming a lot of them into small little mini me's and clones, where they were, that a lot of them had cybernetic or cybernetic limbs, thanks to Vader. And this is all part of the training, in the spirit of training. But for him to suddenly for him to do all of that was pretty kind of crazy. I mean, it's almost, again, very disturbing but fascinating at the same time. And they stuck around. They still continued to serve him and serve the Emperor. But what are your thoughts on that before we get into the why? Because I think what I'm pulling at here is the why. Why stay in this role of training to be this? Like, what were they getting out of this, and how did they get there in the first place? We'll get to that in a second. But what do you think about externalizing that loss that Vader felt onto his own people that he was training?
I think it was an important lesson, actually, if for what he wanted to achieve, for what Vader wanted to achieve, and I think to drive home the point, like you said, of breaking the Jedi-ness out of them, which was really the issue, is that you were still thinking way too much like a Jedi, and that makes you weak.
Mm-hmm.
And what can make you strong, what will fuel your hate, and this is where the loss comes in, right? Hate me. You can hate me because I took something from you, and now you're going to. And we've learned this in Brotherhood. The psychological aspect that Anakin is getting used to with the mechanical arm. And having that type of mentality and that struggle, and having to embrace that kind of what's the word, that challenge,
mm-hmm.
is essential for a Sith wannabe, or a Sith in general, in order to tap into that. And they were, and like you said, quite frankly, none of the Inquisitors, maybe barring a couple, are really anything to write home about.
No.
They're all a bit of a disappointment, or they're all very young in their training. They didn't get very far. They're not the cream of the crop. They're not they're not the upper echelon. And what it's really funny, the Grand Inquisitor is just continually put down by Jocasta Nu in one of the story arcs in the library, and because he's really a bookworm, apparently.
Yeah, well, I want to.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. Yeah, I thought that was actually a hilarious one. But
when we kind of go through them, yeah,
and it really ties into the whole children aspect thing too. That was a really good storyline.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, yeah, but it's essential. Vader has to get them to break these habits, and the best way of doing that is to channel their hate into something or someone, and it'll be him. And again, you're right. I mean, he thought they thought the fight was over and they weren't going to push it any further, and he's nope. Lop off an arm. And well, why was that necessary? And then you're exactly what you said. They need to understand the concept of loss. And I agree with you, man. It's sick, but at the same time, it's absolutely fascinating because it peers directly into who Darth Vader is.
Yeah.
And how he thinks about this. And quite honestly, it ties right back into Palpatine too, because Palpatine continues to take things from Vader throughout these early years of being Darth Vader, and continues to prod at him and continues to surface these Force sensitive people. I mean, we know that Sly Moore, yeah,
yep.
is Force sensitive as well. And she's one of his personal. Is it she or they? I can't remember how they.
I think it's a they. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's they. Yeah, or they or they. So yeah, I think it's who are all these people, and Vader just hates them automatically. I mean, he doesn't really like a lot of people anyway, but anybody that seems to want to garner the Emperor's favor, he's going to automatically have a pretty severe reaction to them being around. Period. But still, he had to. Palpatine knew these guys were weak, and he knew that Vader was the only one who could actually bring them into shape and actually make them into something better, and he did, and they did. And I think the proof was in both the comic as well as what we see in Rebels.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I think it was wildly successful what he did, right? He gave them the edge, no pun intended, but he gave them the edge that they lacked as former Jedi. They didn't have anything like that. I mean, they may have had the grief of personal endeavors or whatever, maybe Order 66, I don't know. But now this was a new level of dimension. It was a gateway for them to tap into some of the extra oomph that they would get from joining, tapping into the dark side in that way, right?
Right.
So that's all fascinating. So let's talk now about I don't know if I want to call it indoctrination of these folks. It was more of a draft. I don't know how this went about. We don't have a lot of good details into how they went out and got them, but we know why. With somebody like the Grand Inquisitor, as we mentioned, that was a temple guard. They've now gone back to say that during the episode, I forget the name of it, the episode where Ahsoka Tano is on trial and she's brought in before all of the Jedi, and I think Sidious or Palpatine, as Palpatine is there. They're one of the temple guards that we see who has a mask on, and he's got the standard temple guard garb, if you know what I'm talking about. But that's supposed to be him, I think, off to her right or left,
Right.
depending on your point of view. So that was one of them that eventually turned over, and he's got a personal story here that we'll get into in a little bit. But for the most part, a lot of these Inquisitors were brainwashed, right, to join. They were tortured in some way. It's hard to find one of them, with the exception of maybe the Inquisitor who had a really truly bone to pick. And even then, it was like a personal thing. It wasn't necessarily against the order itself. But for the most part, a lot of these were just tortured and forced to join. And you got to question their allegiance. And I think we saw that. There were bits and pieces like, what was it in there was, I think it was in the comic book. There was one of the brothers and one of the sisters. Didn't they kidnap the baby or something like that? And
Well, there was a story to it, but they were really wanting to escape
yeah,
and be together. And there was a child that was part of the story there, but I think that's what ratted them out.
right.
But yeah, there was empathy between them. There was
Exactly.
and Vader caught wind of that pretty quick, and his justice was swift.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I think she died at least. I think they both died.
Oh
yeah,
no,
they did.
he killed both of them.
Yep, I remember. I'm visualizing the panel where
That's actually why they're on Nur, is after all of that, because they went and created such a mess in Coruscant.
yeah.
Palpatine's like, you got to get the hell out. Like, you can't mess up my capital. I'm trying to clean the streets up here like Boba Fett.
Oh, whatever. That's not what he was
Right.
doing.
But no, that's why they ended up on Nur. He's like,
yeah.
all right, you guys need your own base.
Yeah, there's too much drama. Go somewhere else, like in the middle of, I don't know, an ocean. And
Well, they had killed a senator that was important to Palpatine, that was empathetic to Palpatine's perspective on things, and he had been working him. And so that's Palpatine experienced that loss, and so Vader had to be adjusted there.
Yeah, but so yeah, how they went out and got these guys to join again was it's pretty much against their will, and through the use of torturing and brainwashing, they were able to get them on board. I want to say, was it the second sister? One of them had
Trilla.
put up Trilla, I think, had put up a fight originally. Like she was hard to convert, and turned out to be an awesome character. Somebody, I think it was Eugene, was calling for a shout out on Trilla.
Trilla is, for those that don't know, Trilla is from the Fallen Order video game.
Yeah.
She's dead, by the way.
Hey, thanks. Spoilers. No.
Oh, come on. The
I'm
game's been
kidding.
out for a while.
Yeah. No, she's dead. But so here's another thing too. And Eugene brought it up. He says, "Why do they call them brother and sister?" Which I have to say, like, is an interesting name. Of all things that you would expect the dark side to call one another, right? I mean, we even maybe in the times of, like, the old Republic, where you had the Brotherhood, and there was a sense of community, a sense of family, almost, and there was. I mean, there was a bloodline there that existed as well with the Sith itself, the bloodlines of the Sith, and that all makes sense. But when you fast forward to where we are now, in this time era, it's an interesting choice of words, especially coming from somebody like a Palpatine or a Darth Vader, at that no longer Anakin Skywalker, to call them brothers and sisters, like as they were some kind of family. And if I mean, you could look at it from the angle of they were a family of sorts, but I mean, wow. I mean, could you be more, dysfunctional and be at more odds with one another? I mean, not to say that those aren't families in reality, but it's a far cry from what we would consider, somebody to be our brother or sister. But any thoughts as to why they would have gone out and choose? I don't remember if this ever has come up, like if they've ever explained the
I
use
don't
of it. I
believe
like
they
the
have.
names.
Yeah,
But
and that they number, and then that they number them too, right?
yeah.
And I think this actually goes back to, I was actually thinking about Pong Krell
Mm.
of all people, right? Because in Clone Wars, Pong Krell, of course, wants to defect and show his value to Dooku, and he is adamant about calling the clone troopers by their number.
Yeah.
And I think this is very much that dark side way of doing things. Of you put a number and a very generic label to someone, rather than admit that they have a name and that they have a person. And it's psychological warfare on that person too, right? It's that effect of repressing and oppressing them to the point where that's all there. And I think this is that indoctrination or that brainwashing you were talking about is all part of that. And so, yeah, they're all part of this family, this group. But rather than just call them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they got a little bit, at least designate their gender, I suppose. But I think it's very much just to keep them in line and say, look, you're not an individual anymore. You are owned by the Empire. You are owned by Palpatine's special force here, and know your number, know your role, and be happy that you're here, because otherwise we'll end you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's very much that. I think it's just all 100% psychological, and they've beaten every bit of their old lives and their old names and belief systems out of them. Not entirely, because we know that many of them still remember and know all this stuff, but for the most part, they've adopted this. This was their reward, I guess, for making their crystals bleed. I'm assuming they did that too. That's unclear as well, because that had all come out, after all of these stories did with the bleeding of crystals.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a good question about whether or not. And to be fair, like some of the stuff we just do not have the answers for. It's been coming out kind of piecemeal as the story is needs it, or as it helps to drive plot points and storylines, that sort of thing. We get the bits and pieces and the backstory, but so far, yeah, that is another elusive piece. Because if you think about it, I don't know that these guys. I mean, have they gone through so much suffering and so much loss, and are they that in tune in the Force to make a crystal bleed? I think from what we've seen, I don't know that they are. Like personally, I don't.
Well, we saw Vader, the effort required for Vader to do it, because the crystal pushed back on Vader considerably to the point where Vader almost gave in.
Yeah. So either we have a collection of former Sith crystals that Palpatine has collected over the years, and he's probably got more of them, and they're just popping them into hilts and hand them out. Or you got somebody like Vader who's going around like, man, I got pain for everybody. Let me just give me your crystal here, and I'll purge it and make it bleed for you, and then hands it over to them, right? But yeah, I don't think these guys are probably capable of doing that.
Oh, I have a feeling that they did not earn those crystals in the way that Vader did. But again, I also think that that's it's like, for a Padawan, going and finding their crystal and building their saber is a milestone, right?
Yeah,
What do they call that? This was in Brotherhood too, not the awakening, but whatever it is. Is it the awakening? I don't know. Whatever the journey is that they go and
I'm trying to
find their crystal. Yeah, it's something, but it's the same. Like for Vader, or for the Sith, that's an escalation to become a Lord, right? To actually be Lord of the Sith, you have to do that. And I think for these wannabes, they probably didn't have to. And I imagine that's also why they're beneath Vader as well. He's like, you haven't had to do anything. You have been gift the gathering. Thank you, Lauren. Yes, the gathering is where the Jedi gather on Ilum to find their saber. But that's important for the Sith to do. But these guys have been given everything. They're spoiled. Yeah, and I think that's just more of the hatred that Vader has for these pathetic wannabes, that they're not really worth his time.
Mm-hmm. So while we're on the subject of brothers and sisters, I know another question that comes up quite a bit is how many of them were there? And hopefully you did the research on this. Did you do the research on this?
I have a pretty good idea. I think there's about a dozen. I think there's about a dozen is what I figured out.
So yeah, and I would say it sounds like there is no more than 12, and I don't know why that number would be the number, but there's not like
Because
hundreds
the highest
of
one
these guys.
highest one we have is the 11th.
Yeah. And 11th just sounds weird, so let's just go with a dozen. Maybe we go with the baker's dozen if we want.
Right.
But yeah, it doesn't sound. And you think about it, if Order 66 did their job the way they were supposed to, there really shouldn't be any left over. However, so whatever is left over, it's going to be few and far between. So, and not all the numbers have been used either. I mean, we know some of the more common ones that come up in Jedi Fallen Order.
We're getting pretty close to having. That's why I said 12. I think we're getting pretty close to filling in all of those blanks.
I think we've got about 4 or 5 left over still to fill.
Well, let's count it. So we don't know who the first is. So
Okay.
I think that's one we don't. Well, we know there's a second.
I got a question for you. I got
Yeah.
a question for you, and it's more for the audience as well. But are there 12 brothers and 12 sisters, or is it 12 total? And if you're number 1, your brother, and you're a male, then your brother 1. And if number 2 is now female, then that's sister 2, et cetera, right? Or are there 12 of each, or what do you think there?
Since we've not seen any 2 of the same, I'm going to go that they just number them as they come in, as they get ranked, and they're like you said, they're either a brother or a sister.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I think that's how they're doing it so far. But we'll be proven wrong here shortly. But go on.
Because again, having 2 dozen, that starts to really, that's a lot. I mean, a dozen is a lot already, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if we count, so if the first, I don't know who the first is. We have none of that. Maybe that's maybe he became the Grand Inquisitor. Because I believe he was the first recruit.
Yeah, I think that's true. But go on. Sorry.
So he was probably first. But we know we've had the second, because that was in Fallen Order. We know we've had the third, that's Reva. We know we have the 4th sister, who is right next to Reva and Obi-Wan. That was confirmed as the 4th. We've had the 5th brother. We've had the 6th brother in the comics. We've had the 7th sister, who was in Rebels, who's a total badass. 8th. I don't know if we have we had 8th? Nope. I think we've had 9th. Yep. I don't know if we've had 10th. I know we've had 11th. So
yeah, and then we've not had 12 or anything above.
Right, yeah. So I think we're really only missing like 2 or 3, to be honest with you, if we say that the first ended up being the Grand Inquisitor.
Yeah, no, you're right, because I was thinking my whole, it's 4 was pre-Kenobi, and I keep forgetting that they've now identified some of those as well.
Yeah.
There also was there was some in Ahsoka that were killed, but I don't think
Ahsoka was the 7th, or that may have been the 10th brother. Or no, that was the 6th brother, because he escaped the comics. And I believe that's the 6th brother that Ahsoka killed. So that's the 6th.
I thought there was 2 in that book, though.
I can't remember. I remember that she killed the 6th, though.
Yeah. And those are where she got the crystals, too. We see her with the white crystal blades, just to kind of bring that full circle. Those are she pulled those Kyber crystals out of the brother's saber, and on both sides, right? They had 2 crystals on it. She took both of them out, purified them, and that's what gave her the white blades that we now see her run around with, which is very cool. I love the fact that I actually like that whole bleeding of the crystals. I know that was controversial. There was a lot of people that were kind of upset about that, but I think they've made good use of that one.
I think so too. I mean, it really, and especially in the Ahsoka storyline, you really feel it, because they call out to her with a song, which I thought was a great connection to High Republic. Of course, that was not even in anyone's mind's eye at that point, but
right. Well, and it's an extension of, they started toying with this idea of a relationship that exists between a Padawan and their crystal, the Gathering, being on Ilum, going through that whole process.
All the way to Gendy Tarkovsky's Clone Wars series.
Oh, no, good point. Yeah. Right. But,
that was the first example of it. It's great.
But I feel like that is an extension of it, right? If there is a connection there, then at some form, in some level, they are sentient in some way, all right? And as such, do they, could they have possible feelings or memories, or can they feel pain? And that's where this kind of spun off from. So I think it's a cool aspect and a cool dynamic, but I do understand how people are like, well, that's not how it was in Legends. And a lot of that has changed.
Makes you really question the gigantic Kyber crystals used for like the Death Star and stuff. That makes you really think.
Think about the massive crystal that they had that
in Rebels,
in Rebels, that Ezra and all them were aware of and trying to destroy. Okay, so let's talk about. I wanted to talk about. We've teased up the Grand Inquisitor and his story. His really, like earlier I mentioned, he had a bone to pick with one particular person. And the way the story goes, and you keep me honest here, the way the story goes is that as he was still a Jedi, on the light side, Order 66. He was always a bookworm, and he was always in the Jedi archives in the library, that infamous place that we saw during Attack of the Clones, and he was always butting heads with Jocasta Nu. He was. I don't remember I don't know if it was like a, hey, you're too loud, or sorry, you can't check that book out more than twice. I don't know what it was, but he had a problem with her. And maybe
he wanted to read. Yeah, he wanted to read certain ones, and Jocasta Nu was like, "No, you're not ready.
Yeah, that's what
no, you're not good enough." Basically, so it became a personal vendetta for him.
And to some extent, I always saw that as maybe it was her harboring, gatekeeping knowledge, right? Because somebody had to. I mean, you couldn't just go into the archives and get whatever you wanted. I mean, that was part of who was it? Both Anakin and there was somebody recently in the High Republic who was wanting. Oh, it was like Elzar Mann, right?
Yeah.
He's been wanting to make this the crossover into a master for so long, because it allows you access to some of the stuff that you're not allowed to touch as a Jedi Knight. And when you reach that level, that people don't get in your crap about how you're going about and
there's
using
no restrictions.
Right. Yeah. As long as you're not, doing something nefarious and tapping in the dark side. I mean, it's kind of whatever you want to do. And so to some extent, I always felt like she was kind of gatekeeping that knowledge, and he took that personally of like, well, I'm fully capable. I should be able to have access to it. And
well, we know that she's
otherwise.
We know that Jocasta Nu is pretty arrogant at times, right?
No.
I know, right? I don't see it either.
She's
if it's not in the archives, it doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Just don't exist. I love that line. So great.
There, since it's already been out for a number of years, I didn't get a chance to go back and read the story, but do you remember when they did finally find her? After Attack of the Clone, after Order 66, and
oh yeah.
Yeah, what was that an Inquisitor or was that Vader? I forget now.
That found her?
Yeah.
Well, she actually had to go into the archives. So so for just a really quick backstory, so Jocasta Nu had a holocron with names. So this kind of goes back to the list of names.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a secret place that she was storing knowledge that was going to basically become the new Jedi Academy. This was going to be the new archives and the new library, and she had someone that was helping her as well, and I can't remember his name, but for some reason she had to go back to the archives on Coruscant, and that's where she bumped into the Grand Inquisitor.
That's right,
because he was in there just feet up on the desk, making comments about her, and it pissed her off, and she couldn't resist because she saw him, and it made her mad that he was there because he does not belong here.
Yeah.
And she didn't quite know who he was, I think, at the time. But, when she got what she needed and she was leaving, but she couldn't help herself. She's like, this guy is desecrating, this holy place of knowledge. And so she had to go down there and teach him a bit of a lesson. And she did. She handled him quite well. But then, of course, Vader shows up.
Yeah. So what stuck out, thank you for that, by the way. What stood out to me, though, is this is where we get the Jedi lightsaber empowered or Jedi crystal powered
yes.
blaster
gun. Oh gosh,
she's got this massive rifle that she pulls out, and I know there was a lot of people were talking about this because it's like nothing we'd ever seen, and I don't remember the specifics if it was the entire lightsaber that went in that charged this weapon or if it was the Kyber crystal itself.
Oh yeah, you put the whole hilt just like the vectors, yeah.
Yeah, like the vectors that they use in the Old Republic or the High Republic.
Right.
And so, and really, we haven't heard anything about it in quite some time. And this is, I'm going off script just a little bit because the theory that I've always had, ever since we got into, I think, Rising Storm, the theory is, how do the Jedi get close to something like the Leveler? They can't, right? I mean, as soon as they get within proximity, they're screwed. All their senses go away, whatever, and they're relying on people. And I thought, I wonder if they're going to tie this back as that weapon is something that was a construct or as a result of the Leveler. And they thought, well, you know what? We can't use these lightsabers for melee because we can't get that close. But if we can engineer some kind of a blaster where that's powered by the lightsaber, now you've got, and I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but potentially, what do you have? Like you've got a phase 3 of the High Republic where these Jedi now are running around with these massive blasters firing at levelers or anything else, and I just think that's such a converse way of looking. You think about Kenobi's line of blasters and how uncivilized they were, and yet you potentially could have all of the Jedi running around with these things firing them off. It's a cool thing. I like the concept of it, but it is funny to see that panel because she's such an old frail woman and she's got this massive weapon in her hands that she's using to fire. So
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that, other than I wanted to share that kind of.
I'm glad you did, because it is super cool, and I believe this arc was all written by Charles Soule, right?
Yes, it was.
So it makes total sense that he came back to that idea
Mhm.
of a basically a lightsaber powered weapon, and it was the first time. And I'm with you. I would really like to see this come back in some form, and it to be something instrumental. But again, it goes back to what is all, and this was the story that this was all wrapped up in, was that there are many secrets that only the Jedi masters knew. And Palpatine knew it was somewhere, but they weren't making any progress, and it was actually a secret chamber that all of this stuff was stored in. And again, for this arc, it was very much about a list of names is what Palpatine was really looking for, and it was in this this special vault type of area.
Yep. Okay, so before we kind of transition into the final piece of this, which is what can we expect in Kenobi, anything else that you want to cover? I mean, they've, for the most part, a lot of them have died. I don't know when it's going to end. In terms of, I'm wondering if this Kenobi series will be kind of put a bow on it, if you will. Let me think about that. No, it's going to have to be.
Well, timeline wise, it won't.
It'd be it'd be Rebels. But
yeah, because there's another 5 to 8 years of Inquisitors around. So
yeah.
But yeah, I think.
Else, though?
No, I mean, I'm hoping this adds to that lore, and I really hope it adds to. We get some of the questions answered. Especially I think with Reva, I think this is a character that we could really explore. What do they go through? And when she's, calling to Obi-Wan and saying, you can't escape him. Like, what is that backstory? Like, what did she go through, and what was that training look like? And for lack of a better word, what's the relationship with Vader, and how does that help us understand the Inquisitors as a whole? Or maybe why is she perhaps a little bit more special? Because she seems very competent.
Oh yeah.
Whereas the other ones, I mean, and what we learned in the comics was that they were always infighting. They were literally one slashed at at a brother's leg so that he couldn't get the kill, and crippled him. And so that was Sixth Brother did that to, I believe, the fifth brother, who's the one that we see in Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm. And
so it's kind of crazy, just the nonsense shenanigan type of thing. But so I'm really hopeful that Obi-Wan will give us more information about them, and maybe finally tell us, how a spinning lightsaber works.
I don't think they're going to do that.
I don't think so either.
I don't think they're going to cross into that or cross that that line of resurfacing that. Because I think that's going to. I mean, it's one thing for it to happen in something like Star Wars Rebels, where you've got a limited audience and it's targeted to younger kids, and there's
Sure.
you can turn a blind eye to some of that stuff if you don't like it. But you throw that in front of whatever it is, 113 million subscribers or 130 million, whatever
130,
the number is.
yeah.
It's a different story, and certainly is going to ask a lot of questions of how does this work, because we have to know how it works. And
we've seen Reva jumping between buildings, so the possibility is there we'd see a little bit of it, and if we saw a little bit of it, okay, as long as they don't just fire it up and then start lifting off,
Yeah.
But if they do it, we talked about this a few weeks ago. If they use it to descend or slow their descent or something, that makes a lot of sense. Use the tools you have available to you.
Right. I think that would make more sense for them to do rather than take off like they were in a Huey.
But it does kind of seem like a Huey. But it does seem like a gimmick that these young, inexperienced, brash, people would get a kick out of this unique saber.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they gave it to all of them. That's the interesting part. They basically don't have any kind of differences between them. They're all roughly the same.
Well, Reva's doesn't have the second blade on it, right? It's only got one blade coming out.
No, she's got two because
You're right. She's got two, but what I'm saying is it's not. What I meant was it's not circular. It's only half of a hilt, so it wouldn't be able to spin fully.
I thought they had showed another one of hers, and it was all the way around. I know the one we've seen on screen though. I'm trying to think back to some of the behind the scenes stuff we had.
Maybe hers comes apart, like she can take it apart and use them as two and then put them together, and all we're seeing is
That'd be kind
one.
of cool.
I don't know.
Yeah, because definitely had two ends, but only one side was lit in the behind the scene when Vader was next to her. Yeah.
Well,
Anyway.
as far as what I'm looking forward to, I guess in this one, I'm with you. I would like for them to, like, it doesn't have to be in my face. I don't want that. I mean, I don't want the story to suddenly be about the Inquisitors, and I don't think it's going to be, given what we've seen so far. I think if anyone, we'll probably lean heavily into Reva first and foremost. I think we're going to get into a personal story with her.
I think so too.
And I'll more on that in just one second. And I think we're going to lean into some of the Grand Inquisitor's story as well, or at least what he's trying to do. Because he is kind of like that. He is like the line leader, the shift leader for these guys, for the Inquisitors. So it makes sense that he's going to have probably a little bit more spotlight. I don't know that we're going to get into, a lot of the finer details with some of the other brothers and sisters. I think they're there just to kind of move the story along and enforce, what those two are kind of wanting. But if they do have an opportunity to kind of give us some insight into things like why they're called brothers and sisters, or we see some of the antics that go into recruiting them or keeping them, or we see some of the inner fighting that you've just mentioned, certainly things that we've seen in the comic book. I'd love to see that, because it would be eye opening for people to see them for the first time and realize that this isn't a perfect unit by any means. That these guys there is a lot of infighting, and they are dysfunctional in a lot of ways, even though, and to be fair, I mean, they've got an advantage right now in a world where there are no other Jedi, right? The average person has a blaster at best, and we know they're fully capable of deflecting blasters. They may not be as proficient and reflecting them back at people as a Jedi Master would, or, somebody like a Sith, but yeah, they can definitely hold their own. So they've got a huge power advantage in this time and in this era of Star Wars. So that would be one thing I'd like to see. Now, with Reva specifically, we threw some theories out there. At least I threw that one theory that, maybe I have a feeling like there's something personal there. Like there's a personal vendetta, and it could be against Kenobi himself.
Right.
I don't think that's too far-fetched to think. It could be a larger, maybe systemic issue that she has with the Jedi Order, similar in the vein of like Pong Krell, or a Dooku, or Barriss Offee, right? Feeling like the Jedi had lost their way, whatever that was, and she feels wronged in some way. I don't know how I feel about that one, that somebody would cross over and become that dark and that evil, unless she was manipulated and brainwashed, and that's why that kind of took her over the threshold. Or the other possibility could be that with somebody like her character may have been a Force sensitive, maybe somebody that was identified early on, and similar to, what is it, the Marquez sisters from
Bad Batch.
from the Bad
Or
Batch,
from Clone Wars, right?
Yeah, technically, but from the Clone Wars and Bad Batch, but like the Marquez sisters, where they were victimized by the inner fighting, or the fighting that was going on between the Jedi and the Trade Federation and Dooku's forces and all that, and so in some way she holds the Jedi accountable for some personal loss that she has, whether her family died, or she lost a loved one in some way,
or she was abandoned during Order 66. I mean, there's all sorts of ways that could play out, and it could also just be the straight up fear from Vader too, though.
That could be driving. I'm sure they all feel that, but yeah, you're right.
Right? Yeah, I mean, and it would explain some of the. It would put a little more context around some of what we've seen already.
Mm-hmm.
But again, yeah, what was that? Why did she first go that path? Because again, Vader didn't know anything, right? Or presumably, but we also know that she wasn't part of that original batch either.
No,
even though she's the third. So that's
well, the numbering, the numbering thing is an interesting aspect too, because I think age-wise that doesn't line up. Like some of them, it's hard to tell too, because they're all
we don't know if the third dies. Do you just replace them with another third? Like you keep using the same numbers, you just reuse it.
Right.
Well, third.
Or does everybody move
up?
Everybody moves up a number.
That would be confusing. We're gonna need name tags.
Yeah. Hey, number 2. No, I'm number 1 now.
I used to be 2. Right.
I used to be 2. Oh, my bad. So, and then there's another part of me that wonders, like, if there's a story where she was, let's say, a youngling. I don't know how people feel about this and whether it's compelling or not. But what if she was like a youngling, and Order 66 happened, and she wasn't part of the crew that Anakin met up with, that he slaughtered. But there's a situation where there are other Jedi around, and for whatever reason, through fear or self preservation, I know this doesn't seem Jedi like, but maybe those Jedi left and were like, "Hey, it's either me or this child," and they had to make a decision right then and there about, do I save this kid? And they left, and they don't kill her, right, for whatever reason, and she now perceives that as, that is the Jedi Order. They're a bunch of cowards, and they left me.
And
for
that was my
dead.
point. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
right.
where
They
I was
left me
going.
for dead. They didn't save me, and now I'm going to put an end to this because these people can't exist, right? Maybe that's something that would help fuel her in some way.
I think that one has some legs to it, I believe, unlike Vader.
Yeah. The other thing about Reva that's interesting to me is I do wonder, if she's not unique in the sense that she's got a personal story or some kind of personal vendetta against Kenobi or the Jedi Knights. I just wonder if she does have a little bit more power than the other ones. You and I toyed with this theory of somebody having like psychometry to be able to touch objects and track people down and do all of that. And it's just, from what I see on screen and the way she's kind of like, perusing, like, what do you call it? Checking out the landscape, right? And she's in the way she moves about her, like she's thinking about things in ways that I don't think the other Inquisitors have shown. I just wonder if she's got some other level of force powers. There's that one scene where her hands are kind of going up against the writing that's on that one wall, and I assume that's her. Again, we're making a lot of assumptions here. But if that's her using that ability of some special force ability, and that's why, maybe she's seen more favorably in the eyes of somebody like a Vader. She's much more valuable to him than just your average, all the other run of the mill brothers and sisters. And maybe that's why she has a personal relationship with him, or at least an amicable relationship. And that's why she's championing, hey, you're not going to get away from him. He will find you, Kenobi, right? Because she does feel like she's a little rah for Vader more than the other ones. The other ones feel like they're just enslaved and put there against her will, but she almost feels like she's consciously there with her own will, right? So why would that happen? But I don't know, thoughts on any of that?
Right. I mean, and it's important to remember though that their job is to serve Vader. That's what the Emperor has told them that they are there for. You are to serve him, and he is my voice, he being Vader. And so I think when I think about that, that's the angle I think you have to keep in mind. None of them think that they're really going to overthrow Vader, even though they kind of have delusions of grandeur. But I think with her, I like the idea though that there is more to her. That they're, the Grand Inquisitor too, right? There's a more ability with her, more promise, more just something that there's there, and Vader does value that, right? He does value those that are strong that can help him pursue his goals.
Yep.
Especially later on, we see that a lot more as he starts to go towards Luke Skywalker.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the idea though of her being abandoned, and that's why she's turned. She has a reason to turn her back on the Jedi, rather than having to be forced into this line of service.
Yeah.
Now, I still want her to have suffered and go through some of that stuff, right? I think that's important as an Inquisitor. It seems like they need to go through that. But for someone to have a jump start on that, Vader would probably understand and have some level of appreciation for her. He's not going to give her any quarter if she screws up. And I have a feeling I know how this is all going to end for her. But I like the idea though that she kind of went willingly into this life.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Grand Inquisitor has a similar story though, right? Is like that. He didn't have to try real hard to be pissed off at the Jedi in order to go down this path.
So I think you and I are both in agreement that she will likely not make it out of this series. However, I would say that having now seen like they're on this press tour and they're going around and speaking and talking about their parts. Moses Ingram as a person, as an actress, I really like her a lot. And now I'm starting to get like, man, do I really want her to leave? Like, if this turns out to be a character that's got so much depth and she brings a lot to the character. And I think we're kind of seeing that, at least. It's early. It's hard to tell because we've only seen trailers, but from what we've seen, it does feel like that is a possibility. Now I'm starting to wonder, well, do we want her to leave? Right? Would that change the story? And it's hard to speculate on it. I think in my heart of hearts, I think she wouldn't make it out. And I think that probably feels appropriate, but I don't know. It'd be kind of cool to see if she did live on. and what that storyline. I think it's going to be all that's going to be, at least for me personally, is going to be predicated upon what her backstory is, right, and how much invested I am in that as to whether or not I want to see her continue. But she would be
And
a fun character, an evil character, an antagonist to love.
absolutely. And I think when we talk about who's going to be in the series and for how long, I think Grand Inquisitor first episode, maybe first two, maybe he shows up again as a cameo type of thing later on. I think we both are kind of in agreement that Vader probably shows up more second half of the of the series.
Yeah.
But I think Riva is in every single episode. I think she makes it all the way start to finish, and she is the Inquisitor of note in this series, and she's going to be where the focus is. And to be able to do all the things that we've talked about and that you laid out for us before, I think she's got to have that screen time and that the ability to do it. And I'm with you. Moses Ingram's got the chops. I mean, she's got the chops. She's something else. I mean, she's an exceptionally good actress, but also she's just, I mean, her presence on screen is just, man, it's just enrapturing with what you see and just the little we've seen. It's difficult to get excited about characters with so little time with them, but with her, you could just tell there's just got to be something more to it all.
Yeah.
And you just want to know. And she's the person to bring this to life. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. I would like her to at least give us the run of the series in it. And, and I wouldn't be opposed to, I mean, I know we've talked about this really is about Kenobi. It's really about that relationship between Kenobi and Vader. But I think, if they are going to give us a full episode or two, maybe possibly three, where it is more one-on-one relationship or cat and mouse kind of game between Vader and Kenobi, right? And I wouldn't mind in those first 2-3 episodes where we get maybe a flashback for her, or even some of the other Inquisitors, right? Just fill in the blanks on some of this stuff and give us a reason to really feel vested in that character, so that if she does extend into those episodes where it's mostly about Kenobi and Vader, we still care about that character, right? Give us a reason for her to exist still in that space. I'd love to see that. So maybe we'll explore that as well.
And again, if she's in all 6, I mean, that gives her a lot of opportunity to do all of those things, as well as to help enhance the Inquisitors as a whole.
Yeah.
For all of us, we know it. I mean, I'm sorry, Fourth Sister, her days are probably very limited. Bye-bye. She was basically one shot. But we also know that Vader's not going to go and do all the hunting himself. But as soon as something feels like it's getting real, Vader will step in. And so that's where the Inquisitor is going to do the heavy lifting here until they've actually confirmed, they are on the hunt for Kenobi. They think they have found him.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like that scene where she's screaming at him in that ship as he's getting away, who I still suspect he's with somebody, and I'm gonna say it's Princess Leia or someone of importance, as he's escaping in that little cargo ship or whatever it is, and she's yelling at him. I think that is that transition period. Like that's probably the end of episode 3 maybe, and we end with him being assembled, Vader being assembled, because he's just now gotten word that there's definite positive proof of Kenobi, and they know from ship manifests and logs about where that's going, so that's his lead. But I think we're gonna get a Vader stalking him at that point and him being on the run, which is exciting, man. That's actually really cool to think about.
Really is.
And I have a feeling they're gonna have more than one confrontation. I think they're gonna set us up for some kind of a light run-in with each other, 3rd episode-ish, 4th episode, and then something's gonna either bring them together or something is going to I think he's going to force Kenobi to engage him in some way. And I have a feeling Kenobi's going in with the intent of putting him down for once and for all and forever and ending this, right? Even though he's probably going through suffering and grief and all that for what happened on Mustafar.
Because again, and not to make it all about Kenobi and Vader, but I mean, they've definitely confirmed that at this point, Obi-Wan believes that Anakin is dead.
Yeah.
And he does not know that Vader survived as Anakin in this kind of way.
Right.
And Vader's name may not be widely known across the galaxy. It's more Palpatine's enforcer, I think, is long how he's been portrayed, almost as mythical figure. That just kind of, you were saying, the shadow in the night type of creature. Mm-hmm. And if you recall back some of the material we've had for years now, that type of thing for Vader was, Emperor Palpatine has a dog who is vicious.
Yeah.
But no one really knows a lot about him because no one really survives.
Exactly.
it's all rumors and that kind of thing. But anyway, I didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah.
No, it's fine. It reminds me of like Kaiser Soche from
The
Usual Suspects kind of thing.
Yep.
We didn't even talk about the Shadow, which is Darth Maul's name he was out there trying to kill the Inquisitors, and we're probably over on time, but yeah, there's a whole nother thread of stories that happens with Darth Maul where he's tracking these folks down, trying to kill them because, for obvious reasons, whether he hates that Palpatine at this point, he hates what
he's trying to hurt
become.
Palpatine, by dwindling his,
But the cool thing about it is that these Inquisitors are actually fearful of the Shadow. And I don't think they explored it too much, but it was worth noting. And sorry, I just saw my show notes and slapping myself for that one. But
what's interesting about the Shadow is that's what the Knights of Ren call the Force as well, the dark side.
Oh, yeah, the dark side itself.
Yeah, which is a whole nother angle.
That's another show.
Yeah, that's another
we
show.
probably could do Knights of Ren now. Like, there's probably enough there for us to actually do.
We're getting there. I think by the end of Crimson Reign, which is only another month or so here, I think Knights of Ren we're going to have a lot more to say about.
Yeah, we'll have to think
you.
about revisiting that at some point. Okay, any final thoughts? I think that's where we're going to kind of leave it there. Hopefully that was enough to kind of get you caught up, entice you for what potentially we could see in, a week from now? Less than a week from now, we'll get our first episode. Week, actually.
Yeah, pretty exciting. We are, by the time this comes out to the broad public, it will be right at a week. No, I hope that people appreciate this. I hope people at least I know it's difficult to consume all the content that's out there, especially over the number of years. And with these showing up in kind of smaller pieces of content, not always the easiest to go back and try to piece together that story. So hopefully this gave you a little bit of that backstory of the Inquisitors, who they are, where they come from, how they've interacted and how they've, bumped heads before Rebels, and what that relationship with Vader kind of looks like as well. And then, definitely speculating on what we're going to see of them in Kenobi and how big of a role are they going to play.
All right. Why don't you do shout outs? I'm going to flash some of I forgot to throw up the hellos. So while you're doing that, I'll just kind of throw them up here.
Sure. Yeah. Jonathan, Steph, Ken, Lauren, Caleb showed up. Man, thanks for coming out. Twan, Kathy, Dale, Robin, Eugene, Qui-Gon J, and Richard. Thank you guys so much, guys and gals. Thank you everyone for showing up and participating in the chat. We actually had quite a few people on the stream tonight and a great chat going on as well. So again, if you are listening to this, we invite you to come out Tuesdays and Thursdays, usually, if everything goes to spec. And we're over on YouTube, Facebook, all the live streams there. But if you want to keep track of us, the easiest way is to check our social medias. Everything is at the Cantina Cast. But also, hit the like button and hit that subscribe button on the YouTube feed, and sign up for the notifications. And again, we're just Cantina Cast there as well. So check us out. We are close to 1,000 subscribers, which is pretty exciting. So if we can get that going, maybe we'll figure out something to do for 1,000 subscriber special or something.
Yeah, which is interesting because we use this as a way to record the shows, not necessarily produce shows in YouTube, but that's cool. I mean, that's awesome. I'm glad that many people have subscribed to it. Maybe if we get to 1,000, we'll start putting together some kind of a YouTube show about that.
You mean like a live stream twice a week?
No, I meant like actually, yeah. Well, besides that,
I thought a lot about that earlier today already. So
yeah, we'll see. Okay, I think that's it. Let's see, what do we got coming up here? Next Tuesday will be our next show. I think we're going to do a final hype show coming up on Celebration. Wow, that's going to be like the night before I fly out. So we have to
figure that one out. We might want to bump that to a Monday or something if we could, because we got early flights on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, I'm getting at the crack acid. Excuse my language. To take off Wednesday morning. But yeah, next week at some point we will do a final hype show and release that before day one of Star Wars Celebration. Kind of give you our thoughts on what we're looking forward to seeing. Get everybody caught up on what we know we're going to see. Talk about some of the things that have piqued our interest, and it'd be fun to kind of share our own personal experiences. I thought from 2019, because I know we came back from that celebration and it was just a whirlwind of news and information, and I don't know that we really got a chance to do a lot of that, but it would be fun to kind of just talk about, what did we like about 2019 and, whether or not we think we're going to see that. We'll certainly be hyping up the show with Claudia Gray. So as a reminder, we'll have Claudia Gray with us live on the podcast stage Thursday.
Maybe we'll give you just a slight preview of what we're doing there with her.
Oh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, we can kind of talk about the show. Hopefully, I'll have my show notes put together now that she's decided to join us, and I've had to redo a couple of things. But
Mark.
no, Mark sent me his.
Oh, okay.
So we're good.
Cool.
Today he sent it. So thank you, Mark, for doing that. That's behind the scenes stuff there.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, that takes us right into Celebration. So we are going to play it by ear. I don't know how feasible it is for us to get some of this stuff out. I mean, I'm kind of thinking in my head we'll probably at least do one or two check-ins with you guys, record some stuff. We may do like we did last year, where we do or the last Celebration, we recorded some shows there on the Celebration floor at some point. We had a quiet room last time, so that made it nice and convenient. But we can pick a lobby space and go do something like that. But yeah, I would expect us to. I don't know how we're going to tackle the Obi-Wan Kenobi breakdowns. I mean, that's crazy just to think we're going to have to do that while we're there. But I think we are. We're going to have to.
We might not be able to turn that out until Saturday night, though, unfortunately. But we'll have to see.
Yeah,
we have a really busy first couple of days we're there. We're pretty much start to finish every day.
It depends on how much Jonesy decides to consume. No, I'm kidding.
Why is it always me?
Well, between both of us, you're the one that drinks. That's all I'm saying. I'm not implying anything.
I don't really drink a whole lot anyway.
No, you don't really drink a whole lot either at all.
No.
I was just I was teasing you.
I know.
I think last time we were in pretty early. And then everybody else went out and did stuff though. So
yeah, but we know we got events both Thursday and Friday night.
Yep.
I know there's a lot of stuff going on Saturday night too, but we may have to. It might be a work night for us.
Yeah, it's gonna be
because Saturday starts to get busy, like for the actual show as well. I mean, it's just chocked full of stuff. I've got my itinerary ready, so maybe I'll share that a little bit if we do our final hype show for Celebration too.
Oh, I haven't thought about that either. Like, are we going to be going to different things? Because I think there are some things on there that I've seen that I'm like, oh yeah, that's got Albert written all over it, but I think Jonesy would fall asleep. So.
Yeah, the stuff I'm probably going to go to are largely the main stage, like the main 3 stages. But there's a few university stages and a few other things that are interesting, but there's conflicts everywhere. So
right,
you have to kind of pick and choose what you're going to get.
There you go.
But yeah, so Dale had a good point here. He'll be wearing his Cantina Cast shirt on the first day of Celebration. So again, if you have swag to wear, put it on so we recognize you and we can come by and say hi and not hug or handshake because that's against the rules at Celebration this year. So
I saw that.
We will force high five, I guess, or something. But no, yeah, we'll have our Star Wars stuff on. We'll probably have a Cantina Cast shirt on for at least a day or two. Hopefully not the same shirt, but we'll see. But
awkward.
So yeah, but yeah, if you do see us, if you do recognize us, please do come up and say hi. We would love to interact with you. And again, where we'll be at 11 a.m. on Thursday.
Yeah, there's only going to be like 60,000 people walking around, but you do run into people. You will see them every once in a while, believe it or not.
Please do not get on your hands and knees and worship us like what happened at 2019. That was very awkward.
It was awkward.
We love you.
It was appreciative.
But it was still awkward. Yeah. But he was smashed.
Well.
He was super smashed.
Very true. Very true. What was I going to say? So yeah, I'll have my shirt on that first day. And it is a heather gray, so that's going to be awkward. Dale and I are going to be wearing that same shirt.
I'll have the 10-year shirt. I'll also have the Celebration shirt. I've got like 5 or 6 different Cantina Cast shirts. So
I got my black chrysanthemum shirt ready. It's like
I do. I got mine too. I'm wearing that one too.
Pressed and ready. I was thinking about wearing that on the stage, honestly, because we're going to have Cantina Cast stuff everywhere else. So, but the other thing, and by the way, so we're not really kind of announcing this so much, but if you can make it out to Celebration for the show, we got all kinds of goodies. I know we've talked about this. We've got all kinds of stuff to hand out, whether it's pins, lanyards. We've got some patches. I've got buttons coming in. I've got stickers coming in. And I've got a stack of books that I'm packing in it's going to be a whole carry-on. But I've got a ton of books that I just need to offload because these are the ARCs that we get, the advanced reader copies, and I end up buying the ones anyways, or I get the signed versions of them. So they were taking up space, and I literally have a whole stack of them from everything from the High Republic to Thrawn books and anything else. So I don't know. We'll figure out a methodology in which we'll distribute those, but you guys are free to take those. Like, get them off my hands. I don't want to bring those back with me on the plane because
I'll have a couple of
things to bring back.
I'll have a couple young reader ones too for Mandalorian that we have to get the season 1 and I believe season 2 also. And so we'll give those away too. So if you've got a young one that would like to read Mandalorian, we have that for you too.
Yep. So I don't know. There's no reason why you shouldn't come out and see us now.
there's
Yeah,
all the
Claudia
more
Gray.
reasons to come out. Yeah.
We'll get cookies. Figure out we got to how do we sneak cookies in? We'll have those as well.
Oh man, yeah.
Punch and pie. All right, this has been the longest outro ever. Anything else before we get out of here?
Oh goodness, no. Let's do it.
Okay.
Punch it.
Hey, bye. Sorry. Wait, Tuesday. I've got the updated credits. They're done, but I wasn't going to use them on this episode. I will use them on Tuesday night's episode, so look forward to that.
Well, and again, Justin, thank you for subscribing. I'm assuming you're not in the credits here, but we will get that.
You're not in the. That's why we're not rolling them tonight. But
he just signed up yesterday, so I think we have a little bit of grace here. But
okay.
Anyway.
All right.
For real this time.
All right. Bye.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.